I'm excited for this season of Rocket Motivation because my firm, Hand, Arundel, Harris and Sale, Attorneys at Law, where I am a partner, is our sponsor. We understand life and running a business can be challenging, but with the right support, it can also be incredibly rewarding. That's why we're thrilled to announce our partnership with Hand, Arundel, Harris and Sale.
I always considered myself a survivor. Now I was really a survivor, and it just made me think that if I could get through 9/11, I could get through anything. And God wanted me to be here. And it was kind of my thinking at the time. Now I have to try to make a difference in my life and other people's lives. It motivated me more to be a leader. Since I was so blessed to have survived, okay, how can I turn this into something positive and become more of a leader from this and really try to make a difference in the world?
Hey everyone, this is Rod Cate and welcome to this week's episode of Rocket Motivation. On 9/11, this week's guest was working for Morgan Stanley in Tower 2 of the World Trade Center. After the first plane hit Tower 1, this week's guest made it down to floor 44, which was a mid-tower lobby. While contemplating his next move, the second plane struck Tower 2. This week's guest tells his story of making it out, making it home that day, and how these events have affected his life. Josh Zucker, welcome to Rocket Motivation.
It's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Well, Josh, let's do this. Kind of tell us where you are now in your life, what you do, where you live, family, just kind of catch us up.
My name is Josh Zucker. I'm a native New Yorker for the first 46 years of my life. I recently moved to Jupiter, Florida in January of 2022, and I've been a bond trader now for the better part of the last 15 years, I want to say, but was always in the fixed income markets. So I work for a company now called Cohen and Company, and they're a smaller broker dealer. And essentially we're, market makers in all types of credit securities, mostly focusing in the high yield and distressed debt universe.
I got you.
So always came from the credit background. When I was working for Morgan Stanley, even in the trade center, I was always in the bond markets. And we had a very active floor on the 60th floor of the World Trade Center. It was right when Wall Street was starting to get tame, and all those crazy stories that you heard from the 80s and 90s were, kind of dying out, and you really had to start behaving yourself.
Yeah.
When we were in the trade center, we worked in a trading floor environment, which if anyone's not familiar with that, it's kind of like high school. Everyone's desks are right next to each other and it's down the row. And, the cast of characters is very, very long and very, very diverse on a trading floor. So it was a great start to my career and a great start to the business.
Okay. Well, let's go back to 9/11. You were there and tell us the story.
Yeah. So one of the things that you always remember is that day I always got in early. It was always a rush my goal was always to be at the desk by the latest, like 6:45 in the morning. And I remember that morning I picked up a pair of shoes that I had resold in the World Trade Center lobby. And I walked in and I got my shoes. And then I went to the desk and, kind of began my day like any other day, sitting at my desk and, going through all the news flow, trying to plan the day and, essentially how you're going to make money. And I forget the exact times when Tower 1 was hit. I believe it was right before 9 o'clock. And we're sitting at the desk, and all of a sudden, the one thing that I remember distinctly is that you just heard a loud boom, but it wasn't anything crazy. And the power probably went on and off for about 5 seconds. So it was like, woof. And then it came right back. The whole trading floor came right back on. And everyone was like, what was that? Because it didn't feel like, because again, we were seconds to get hit. It didn't feel like the building shook or anything else like that. It was just very, very odd. And the next thing you know is that as you look out the window, I was facing where my desk was in the building, was facing more of New York Harbor, right? So the World Trade Center, Tower 1 was behind us. So all we saw was the paper on fire. So it was like a ticker tape parade with just tons and tons and tons of paper, but it was all on fire. So you're saying to yourself, okay, what is going on here? That was, something was obviously was not right. And I was very, very fortunate that my two bosses, they experienced the bomb in 1993. And they knew to essentially get everyone off the trading floor and ideally probably out of the building as quickly as possible. But as you alluded to before, the building had a very, very interesting setup. Since it was so massive, you would take the express elevators, in which they probably were, God knows, 20 of them, right, to the 44th floor, and then you went up to your different elevator sub-banks. So we had to retreat to the 44th floor before we decided what to do. So we walked down from 60 to 44, so 16 flights of stairs, obviously. And, that's where we congregated and was essentially planning our next move. So as everyone remembers, it was, I'm sure at some juncture you heard of this gentleman. I forget the guy's name, but he was the head of Morgan Stanley Security, old Vietnam vet. And he was on the 44th floor. And I remember him saying with a bullhorn, a small plane numerous times has hit building 1. Building 2 is secure. And I pulled him aside. I said, because I would see this gentleman every morning. I said, sir, what do you think? He says, you could do whatever you want. You could hang out here. You could go back up to your desk. Building 2 is secure. You could go downstairs, right? Essentially go down in the elevators. So I'm sitting to myself and I'm like, okay, this is kind of odd. So we're all congregating on the 44th floor. And I go to my buddy. I was like, what do you think? He's like, I am getting the F out of here. So, he was pretty convinced. So I said, okay, let me find the way down. And right after he said that to me, that's when we got hit. That's when it was really scary. Yeah.
So when it hit, you're on the 44th. How far above you was the plane where it hit?
So if you remember, the terrorist that was piloting the plane, he turned the wings at the last second when he headed into Tower 2 to essentially cause maximum damage. Instead of going in straight, the wings turned. So I heard stories that on the conference room floor on 62, that there was jet fuel on their conference room tables, essentially. Oh, gosh. So call it 18 floors above where we hit.
So when it hits, you're feeling it.
Yeah, I thought it was a bomb. Again, remember the first time around, we were told a small plane, crashed into Tower 1. So, you're not thinking anything that there could be 2 planes or anything. Again, you're in the building. We're not near any windows. That's another thing too. When we were on the sky lobby, the way it was set up, there was more enclosed. You could have walked down to 43 and 42 to the cafeteria, and then there were windows. But where we were, there were no windows. So you couldn't look outside and see anything. So you just heard this massive sound. The next thing you knew, all the elevators crashed. So the people that went back up to the desks all died immediately. Oh. And then it was just smoke immediately came from all the elevator shafts.
All right, so Josh, the plane hits. You're on the 44th floor in the lobby. You got to get out. So so what do you do?
Okay, so essentially everybody made in a very orderly fashion to the stairwell, which was on the left side of the elevator bank. Okay, and it was very funny as I alluded to before. We had a big trading floor, but it was a mix of a lot of young people, and all of a sudden I saw all these people holding hands that I never knew were together in couples. But I guess they were in times like that. People don't care, and they just want to be with the people that they're close with. So we walked down, we got to the stairwell, and we started walking down. And I remember it was very, very orderly. And here's the difference. I think in 1993, since there was just one big explosion, right, and everybody was in the stairwells ran to the stairwells at the same time. So that's why it took some of these people 3 hours to get down the stairwell. Because it was just essentially, it was just like leaving a ball game or a concert. Everyone leaves at the same time generally, and it takes forever to get out of one exit. Whereas this time it was different, right? Because everyone below us in 44 had already left the building, right? Their sky lobby was the first floor. So luckily, when it was just the people coming in from 44 that were going down, and the residual people that stayed at their desks, before the first plane hit. So it was a very, very rapid descent down. There were many people that, kind of like were stopping in the stairwells, were exhausted. And that's when people just like really, helped them out and helped them to essentially get down. And I remember getting down and going into the World Trade Center mall very, very quickly. And I've said this a couple of times, and I can't express enough gratitude. NYPD did a phenomenal job of routing us out of the building, right? That's one thing I really, really respect and eternally grateful for. And especially those people probably all lost their lives. So they routed us out towards West Broadway. So that was away from Tower 1, where, that's where the majority of the people were jumping.
Yeah. So when you're going down those stairs, when you're walking down the flights of stairs to get out of there, I know something has hit, or like you thought a bomb was going to. Did you know that a plane had flown in and hit the tower at that point?
No. I just thought it was some terrorist event. You're not thinking, Al Qaeda or anything to that extent. You're just, okay, this is all too odd.
Yeah.
I didn't find out that information until I literally walked down Wall Street.
Right.
And then somebody told the street that it was 2 hijacked planes out of Boston.
Right. When you're walking down those stairs, something bad is going on. I mean, what's going through your mind? I mean, are you scared? What's happening internally?
Yeah, at the time, I had a 1-year-old at home. And the only thing on my mind, I told my wife all the time, I'm sorry, I wasn't thinking about you, but I was thinking about getting home to my little girl. I was just like that. I just heard her face. I was like, she is not growing up without a father. Like that was what was going through my mind. She is not growing up without a father. I had to find a way to get out of this building and get home to her, because like that's, and now that that girl is 23 years old. Right. But that was what was my motivating force. Just, get out and get home to her.
When you get out of the building, out of Tower 2, I mean, what are you seeing? Because, Tower 1's already been hit. What are you seeing around there?
Where we were going, again, was more towards West Broadway. So the way, it was situated it was Tower 1, Tower 2, then West Broadway, right? So because so many people were jumping, they wanted you to get away from the courtyard. They routed us out. I just saw a decent amount of debris, but nothing crazy. They just picked the clearest path to, where there would be the least amount of danger.
Right.
So, and then I just knew to get away as quickly as possible, from the building. That was what was going through my mind.
Okay. Well, when the towers collapsed, how far away were you?
I was on West 4th Street at the time. Now, hear me out, right? So I was like, okay. Once you get away from the building, you're saying, okay, I got to get off the island of Manhattan, right? You find out it's a terrorist event. You're saying to yourself, okay, I remember looking back. I was on Wall Street looking up at the towers, I said, and seeing the fire and, obviously the space where the hole that the plane went in. It's like, man, it's going to be a long time before I get back to work. But you never thought in your mind that the building would fall. I never thought in my mind that the building would fall. And again, at the time, I knew it was a jet plane and that went in there. And, obviously, a lot of people didn't think the buildings would fall because they were just built like such tanks, right? So I got to the Brooklyn Bridge and I said to myself, they might blow this thing up. So I was scared to walk across the Brooklyn Bridge to Brooklyn to get off the island because I was petrified. And so I just started walking uptown. I was like, let me at least get away from downtown. And what I remember at the time, there were no cars in the street. Picture Manhattan, and I'm sure everyone who's listened to this, or the majority of the people, have been to Manhattan or at least visited. And you know how noisy it is. And it was just dead silent. The silence was on the street. I mean, you could have heard a pin drop, and people were just walking. There were no cars, and people were just walking. It was like a scene out of a movie. But I remember as I got a little bit further away from the towers, there were just people going about their normal day. People. I remember passing a bodega, and the guy was just like, setting up the groceries for the day. Does this guy not have any clue what just happened? And that made me mad, right? Like, how could you be that clueless? But then once I got away from that, I was just like, at some point, because none of the cell phones were working, right? Because the Trade Center had the major antenna. So I was just like, okay, I have to find a payphone to call my wife to tell her that I'm alive, right? That I'm okay. And the first payphone I find, some people on the podcast might not remember collect calls. Obviously, you and I do. And if you remember, like one of the ways that sometimes when you wanted to save the crazy charges for collect calls, you would just call and just leave your name, and your mom knew you to pick you up from school or something to that extent. And I called my wife and I called collect because I didn't have any change on me. And there was a pause, like we were trying to gain acceptance for this call, and all of a sudden I got a response back. Oh, we could not gain acceptance for this call. So I'm thinking in my mind, my wife's just like one of these people. She's at the gym. She's not around. I must have gone to the answering machine, and which was hardly the case. I could get into her story a little bit if you want, because she essentially lived my death. She obviously, thought it was more of a 1993 scenario where it was going to take me hours to get down the stairs.
Oh God, because she's probably watching all this on the news, so she knows that planes have hit, and all she knows is that's one of the buildings that you work in. So she has no idea.
Correct.
Oh my gosh. Well, tell us how you finally get in touch with her.
So, I mean, like her story a little bit, just like, so she's sitting there in my apartment with a newborn, essentially, right? And watching this all on TV. My mother-in-law calls her, and my mother-in-law, for some reason, had no idea that I work in the World Trade Center, even though I probably told her 100 times. But so she's sitting there watching this, and she's talking to my mother-in-law. She's like, don't you remember in 1993, it took them hours to get down from there? And she's like, oh, yeah, that's right. And as soon as she said that, that's when my building fell. Oh, like she literally lived my death. And she said that, and then everyone just started pouring into my apartment, all my relatives. And she said people were just looking at her with such pity that here's this young, we were 24 at the time, young mother that just essentially became a widow at 24 with a 1-year-old.
You finally get in touch with tell us about that.
If you want to back it up a lot, I was on West 4th Street when the building came down. And I just, at that point, West 4th Street is probably about 2.5, 3 miles away from the Trade Center, something like that. 2 miles, I want to say. But people were still running. Now you didn't see any of the black dust coming at you, but people, like, all of a sudden, people just started running. I'm like, what just happened? Like the building fell. And, I was with my partner at the time. I was just like, the building fell? Are you kidding me? Again, you never thought in a million years that the building would fall. And that's when I was like, okay, the building fell. I got to really get in touch with my wife now. So going to finally find a Roy Rogers where there's a payphone. Call my wife. My wife's like, I knew you were alive because I heard your voice. Everyone thought I was crazy, right? When they heard your voice, and she was so excited to know that I was alive. She hit do not accept on the collect call, right? So, and then everyone thought that she was nuts. But we talked to her, and I told her what was going on. And I found out at that time that my good buddy who worked for Deutsche Bank at the time Deutsche Bank took down a whole hotel in Midtown. So she's like, go to Midtown, meet Jerry, and then you guys could somehow figure a way to hopefully get home. But then my partner asked my wife to call his mother and tell him that he was alive. And she's like, that was one of the best calls of my life that I've ever had to do. Yeah. Because I called up and she didn't know who I was. And she's just like, your son's alive. He's with my husband. And she was hysterical. She's like, are you sure? Are you sure? And she's like, I'm 100% sure. He gave me this number and told him to call. He's with Josh right now. They're going to a hotel. They're safe. They're going to be okay. So then I got to Midtown. And when I got to Midtown, there was a TV in the hotel lobby. And that was the first time that I saw the plane go into the building. My buddy was like, wait, you haven't seen this yet? I was like, no. And I was like, oh, wait a second. That was, and at the time, they were not playing the plane that went into building 1. They were playing the video of the plane going into building 2. And that was like, holy crap.
You're watching on TV a replay of the plane hitting Tower 2, and you were about 20 floors maybe below that in real time.
Correct.
And when you first see that on the TV, what's going through your mind?
I'm like, how did I survive? I mean, I'm lucky to be alive.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm lucky. I'm lucky to be alive. Like that's at the end of the day, I was just like, oh my God, like I felt like the luckiest guy in the world. At that juncture, you just realize that, probably thousands of people died. That's what you realized. And then for some reason, God chose you to live, and you're just so grateful. I mean, the anger didn't hit me at that juncture. That it was just joy at the juncture that I was alive.
Yeah. Well, tell me, all right, so at some point then anger must have hit you. Tell me about that.
Yeah. Make a long story short, I ended up walking across the 59th Street Bridge, connecting with the Long Island Railroad that took me home. And I essentially just got home probably 15 minutes before I usually do, maybe a half hour tops. Got home, and I'm in like a different world at the time. And, they start calling around to see who made it out. Luckily, 99% of the people on my trading floor made it out. And the only thing going through my mind at the time is like, they did this to destroy us, right? The terrorists did this to destroy us. I'm like, they are not going to do that, right? The best thing I can do, since I can't essentially sign up and go to Marines and fight, right, is to go and get the economy back up and running as soon as we possibly can. Right? That's what I can do to help, right? So that was my intention. And a lot of people had very traumatic experiences, and you understood why they didn't come to work for months and even, a year, right? But my mentality was like, I'm getting to work as soon as possible to get the economy back on its feet and back going. That's how I thought I was helping the team the most and America the most, because I couldn't wait to get back, back to work, to prove them wrong and to let them know that they were not going to win.
Gotcha.
And play a role in the rebuild, the immediate rebuild of this. Right. And we will survive, and we will conquer, and we will prevail.
Hey, Josh, let me ask you this. I mean, how did this day affect or change your life?
Oh, God. I very rarely go into it like I do with you. And I just puts everything in perspective, like how quickly life could end, how quickly life could change. It makes me so much more aware of my surroundings. I mean, as a New Yorker, you're always aware of your surroundings, but it still carries with me to this day. I mean, you're always conscious of something, and it's tough to relax even now in a public place without thinking about, what if this and that. And I was scared to fly in a plane for a long time. It was always kind of a traumatic experience of going on a plane. It didn't stop me from flying, but especially in the airport, you're looking around, and then the TSA is created, and it just made me a lot more aware of my surroundings on a consistent basis, and very grateful to be alive, and grateful for the people that got us out of there, and my never-ending appreciation for law enforcement.
Yeah.
And the fact of what they do every single day.
Did you have any problems about going back into high rises or towers after that?
I don't think so. It was a long time before we went back to work. And the next job I had was I was probably on the 20th floor, 22nd floor, something like that, closer to Rockefeller Center. The one thing that really stunk was that where they put us was in Jersey City, New Jersey. So if Jersey City is right on the water across from the financial district. So we would be sitting at our desk, have floor-to-ceiling windows, and I'd be staring out at ground zero freaking every day.
Yeah.
So I'm like, really? They put us here? So we were there probably for a couple months, and then we went to 1221 Avenue of the Americas into Times Square. They subsequently sent us up to Westchester, which I was fine with.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this, and this is a little bit different question. I asked you how this day affected your life. How did this day and what you went through, how did it change the way you look at life, or did it?
I always considered myself a survivor. Now I was really a survivor, and it just made me think that if I could get through 9/11, I could get through anything, right? and God wanted me to be here. And it was kind of my thinking at the time. Now I have to try to make a difference in my life and other people's lives. It motivated me more to be a leader, right? And since I was so blessed to have survived, okay, how could I turn this into something positive and become more of a leader from this and really try to make a difference in the world?
Right. And let me ask you this, Josh, what Rocket Motivation Podcast is all about. I bring on guests that have dealt with and overcome adversity, and I like them to kind of give some advice, like to people that are having some tough times or facing adversity. What advice would you give people that are having a rough go of it, based upon what you went through? Kind of tell the listeners, if they're going through some tough times, what advice you give them?
Never give up. You're blessed to be here, right? God all put us here for a reason. Listen, we've all stared down a dark hole before, and, it stinks. But the power of positive thinking, and again, when I was in that stairwell, I was thinking, like, I have to get out to see my daughter. She's not growing up without a father. And that was if you pick something like to the point where I'm going to get through this, I'm going to survive this, it's just going to make me stronger, and I use it every day in trading, right? There's been, especially lately, there's been a lot of volatility in the stock market. A lot of people are losing money, and it's just like, just keep going, just keep trading. It's going to get better. All right. And it's just like, okay, once I got out, once I started walking down, I'm going to make it out, going to make it work. Power of positive thinking can never be undermined. There's no replacing it. That's what I would say. Just say, keep going, keep thinking positive. You're meant to be here. It's a blessing to be here. It's never that bad. You will prevail and you will overcome.
Well, Josh, man, it's been a pleasure having you on. This has been a great episode. Man, your story is phenomenal. And man, it's just been so good. But now listen, I always give the guest the parting shot. So if you can, although you've already given some great advice and some great stuff, but kind of dig deep and give us something else to take us home.
I don't know if this ties in, right? I love proving people wrong. Right. And, continue to work hard. Like my mentor once always told me, on Wall Street, there's a lot of smart people, and there's many people that will kind of outsmart you, but there's no one that will outwork you. And that's what I try to bring every day to my life, whether that has to do with 9/11 or not. I think it does, in some weird way. These are the traits that I bring to the table every day, and that's how I live my life.
Perfect. All right, Josh. Well, man, it's been great having you, and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time.
What a great episode with Josh Zucker. I couldn't imagine being in the World Trade Center on 9/11 in the actual building when the plane struck. The life lessons Josh gives from living through this event are fantastic. Next week's guest is Trent Crawford. Trent had a hunting accident where he fell from a tree and broke his back. He tells his story of overcoming his partial paralysis and what he has learned from this life-changing event. It's going to be a great episode. See you next week. Thanks again for listening to Rocket Motivation. I want to again thank our sponsor, my law firm, Hand Arundel Harrison Self, with offices in Mobile, Birmingham, Fairhope, and Athens, Alabama, and Destin, Panama City Beach, and Santa Rosa Beach, Florida. We are uniquely situated among the Southeast major law firms to provide legal direction to clients throughout Alabama and Northwest Florida. So whether you're looking for legal advice, litigators, or simply a partner you can trust, Hand Arundel Harrison Sale is there for you. Thank you for listening, and be sure to check out Hand Arundel Harrison Sale for all your legal needs. Visit our website at handfirm.com. And if you would like to get my book, Get Back Up, it's available at Amazon. Just put in Get Back Up and my name, Rod Cate, and the book will pop up. I'd appreciate it if you would subscribe to Rocket Motivation wherever you listen to your podcasts. And please rate and review the shows and spread the word about Rocket Motivation to your friends. So until next time, remember, never give up and always get back up.